Hey guys, and welcome to a bit of a different video from me today. This is going to be the first in what will hopefully be a series of vlogs about my journey, taking myself from my current level of Japanese ability to a point where I can properly call myself, fluent in Japanese, quote unquote. Obviously, fluent is a bit of a ambiguous term depending on what you care about, but yeah, I would just want to improve my Japanese, right? So I'm gonna keep these videos pretty simple. Just gonna be talking about what I've been doing, my experiences and kind of insights, and hopefully it'll be interesting for you guys to listen to. Just want to give a disclaimer that this isn't by any means meant to be like a tutorial on how to learn Japanese or me trying to make some sort of point about the way that you should learn Japanese or any other language, really. What I'm doing is going to be very particular to my background. So just keep that in mind. It's just me vlogging about my own personal endeavor, right? Though with that said, I do think that there's probably going to be various insights that you might be able to pull from this, especially other Japanese learners. I think the current position that I'm at when I started this new effort, is a position that many Japanese learners find themselves in. So, yeah, we'll just kind of see. Let me just, yeah, let's get started. So, first off, just for those who don't know, or for those who need a refresher, because I mean, you guys probably come in here without knowing who I am necessarily. I'm just going to set the stage about my Japanese background. So I started to learn Japanese in 2019, in January of 2019. So it's about 7 years. It's getting close to 7 years in like about 2 weeks for me since I started learning Japanese. And in that first year and a half, I spent learning Japanese through there's a lot of resources really, but like primarily it was the Japanese from zero textbooks and videos that George Trombley uploaded on his YouTube channel. I did watch some anime as well. I'm not somebody who really watched a lot of anime prior to learning Japanese, but I did watch some anime to try to get myself into it. I did also try playing some games early on in like late 2019. Got completely wrecked. I was not prepared. Some people might know, but I've famously told this story about how I spent 24 hours in Pokemon Shield just to get to the part where you enter like the wild area from the beginning game just to there. It's like 24 hours. It's insane. It's insane. But yeah, so yeah, from there in like April of 2020, I got the idea to do a fan translation for the game Lucky Star Roll Gakuen Otosai. It's what I'm mostly known for these days. But it started back in April 2020, like about a year and a half after learning Japanese. Released the first video in June of 2020, and then kind of went from there, right? Spent like still translating that game to this day. It's crazy. But going back to like when I first released these videos, I released the first two, and then I remember spending the summer of 2020 being like, it's taking me too long to make these videos. I'm getting stuck on too many things. I need to really just grind my Japanese study and really just, really just refine it. Because when I went through Japanese from zero originally, I would like kind of. I mean, Japanese from zero doesn't really teach you like the vocabulary with kanji. It teaches you mostly with hiragana and stuff like that. So I grinded and through that, learned all these words in their kanji form, watched other resources like Japanese ammo with Misa. At that time, Japanese from Zero Book 5 had come out. It was only 1 through 4 for the longest time. And then 5 came out. So I did 5, and then I did Genki 1 and 2, just to completely cover my bases, because people would say like Genki 1 and 2 is like better, and JFZ like doesn't really do anything for you. Or it like goes too slow and doesn't teach you enough. So I learned all of that in like a 3 or 4 month period, and I just grinded it super hard. And I learned a ton. And so after that, entering to like 2021, I kind of just did videos. I just I just did translation videos. I felt that I had learned enough to be able to kind of work my way through the videos. And I never really, I mean, I say this with an asterisk because I did try to start up again many times, but I never really deliberately studied Japanese in that same sort of way ever again. I never really did textbooks, never really did deliberate grammar studies. So, yeah, ever since then, it's just been passive exposure plus what I've learned from translating. And so, I've been doing that for, like, I guess almost 6 years at this point. Um, and so now I find myself somewhere probably between N3 and N2 level in terms of JLPT. But I've never taken the test. I do know a decent amount of kind of like how the different levels break down because I would get kind of hyper focused on that kind of thing sometimes. But yeah, that's kind of where I stand probably 7 years. But this kind of leads into the next thing. It's like, whoa, 7 years and you're only between N3 and N2. Well, it's kind of, that feels a little not so great. And so yeah, that kind of ties into the next point, which is that, I did learn obviously a lot from doing fan translations all these years. But there was the problem that what ended up happening is originally doing the translation was a way to further improve my Japanese. That was kind of the original idea that I went into doing the videos with. But the problem is that I ended up becoming way too invested in the idea of doing translation and releasing videos and having people be like, "Oh, you're so cool because you release." I mean, it wasn't really like that, but like, didn't want to let people down, right? Didn't want to let people down, and wanted to focus on releasing videos and stuff like that over actually learning Japanese. So I kind of lost sight of that goal, and it just became about doing the videos. And a bad consequence of that is that I started to really optimize my workflow to speed up translation in short term over like actually learning and retaining like the stuff that came up in translation. Obviously, right, again, like you see so many words, you see some words over and over again, like, you can't help but learn them. But there was a lot of things that a lot of opportunities to learn things where I just chose not to because it's like, no, I just got to keep going, keep releasing more videos. This will slow me down. And I try to kind of make up for that every once in a while, a couple of times throughout the years with hardcore Anki vocab grinding, right? Anki, do I even need to explain it? But Anki, for those who don't know, is just basically flashcards that, repop up. You have to you study them based off of like how well you can remember them, basically. So if you get them right all the time, then you don't have to review them as much. And the cards that you don't remember, you see more often, and you study them like every day based off of that. I think you guys know what Anki is. A lot of people do, but just in case. But I would do these huge Anki vocab grinding sessions over the, every once in a while. And I would focus, whenever I did it, I would always focus on making as many cards as possible over making like effective cards. Like I had known about stuff like I+1 sentence cards and the idea that cards, should have a lot of context or that they should have a lot of extra information. They shouldn't just be minimal cards. And you shouldn't just make cards for everything. But I just kind of never really I cared to do that. It's like I got too focused on the idea of like, well, if I do that, then I can't make as many cards. And then, if I can only make a few cards a day, then it's going to take like hundreds, if I make like 5 cards a day, that's only going to be like 1,800 cards a year. And you got to learn like 20,000 plus words in Japanese to really be like fluent. So it's like, it's going to take way too long. It's going to take way too long. I got to do tons of cards, which kind of reveals another idea, another problem, which was that I was really obsessed with the idea that I didn't know a word. I could only learn a word via putting it in Anki and studying it over and over and over again. There was no notion of like just naturally picking up words, right? Like in my brain, I was like, that doesn't. It's like Anki has to represent all the words that I know. Like if I don't have the word in Anki, I don't know the word. I can't say that I know it. Because how can I know that I know the word if if I knew the word, I'd be able to answer it correctly in Anki, right? So if I didn't have it in Anki, it's like I just like tricking myself into thinking I know words that I don't actually know, right? So and that actually caused a real big problem because I would constantly like delete my Anki decks because I'd get really frustrated and just delete the whole thing and start over. But when I started over, I'd always have to add like the stupid basic words over and over again. You know, like as if I wouldn't know that inu means dog, right? Or hito means person, right? Like I don't know why I did that, but I was very obsessed with this idea. It was very unhealthy. And of course, naturally, when you make like 10 bajillion cards, like there was a period where I'd make like over 100 cards every single day on some of these obsessive grinds. And even if the cards are like mostly words that right? Like the Anki reviews for that get super overwhelming. Like, oh my gosh, I'd have like 400, 500 reviews every single day, and it'd take me like 2 to 3 hours to do them. You know, every single. It was terrible. I'd spend all my time on Anki instead of actually like immersing, and yeah, it was a disaster. I'd make cards for everything. Minimalistic cards. Another thing, right? Again, I wasn't making detailed cards, so even when I did words that I didn't know, I'd be making them like, oh, I watched an anime episode and the character said, this one word one time, so I got to add it and I got to learn it. It's like, okay, but I'm not considering whether or not like that character using that word they're using it in a way that like actually is understandable to me. Do I understand the surrounding context? Is it like a meaningful usage of the word? Like, no, it doesn't matter. It's just like they said the word, so therefore I have to add it to Anki. So I really like there was tons of cards I was just forcing myself to get through that like I barely really knew them super well outside of Anki. Like they were just words they just Anki to me was like words show up and I say what they mean, and they're not tied to any sort of real context. And so yeah, it was just a huge mess because that means like because of that I'd have like really terrible retention on these cards, and so that would just make it even worse because I just had tons of cards and I had tons of cards that I'd fail every single day, and so my reviews were always so terrible that eventually I would just crash and just be like, "Ah, screw it, I'm done." But yeah, there was this kind of also ties to what I was just saying is like another issue that I had is that I think it's because of translation I felt this way because in translation you got to know what every word means to translate like a sentence. You got to look up all the words you don't know. You got to think about what the sentence means, and you got to really understand what it means before you can move on. But I would take that attitude to everything that I would ever immerse with. That I had to master everything before I could move on. If I were to watch an anime episode, I couldn't just, watch it and then learn a few words from it and then move on. I had to learn every single word that showed up in that episode. Right? It was just a disaster. Of course, again, right? Tons of cards just in general, but also tons of words that like, do you need to learn that word? Does that really matter? Is it really being used in a way that's memorable? Oftentimes not. And so, yeah, the most recent attempt that I did of this huge Anki like grind stuff was from May of 2024 up until January of 2025. In that period of time, I think I made like 7,000 ish, like maybe 7,500 cards, right? So it's like 7,500 cards over the course of, maybe like 7 months, right? It's like, man, it's a lot of cards. And it ultimately culminated with a project that I had tried to do in like December of 2024. I had this idea in my head of like I've never seen. Another little fact about me is that for a period of time, like from 2023 mostly and 2024, I was contributing to the translation of Suzumiya Haruhi no Chokuretsu. So the series of Haruhi Suzumiya, it's a Haruhi Suzumiya DS game. Apparently, the full release should be coming out very soon. So hopefully. Yeah, that'll be something that you might have heard about if you're interested in fan translations. Definitely recommend that game. It's good. But anyway, the thing was is that I would contribute to it, but I never actually watched the Haruhi anime, right? So, and that was always a little bit of a joke that people would be like, "Oh, yeah, this guy hasn't seen Haruhi." Um, but so I got this idea that I was like, you know what, I'm gonna use Haruhi to like help really grind my Japanese like out and learn tons of new words. And what I thought to do is that Haruhi Suzumiya has like this thing called like the Endless Eight, right? Which is basically just a arc in the anime where for 8 episodes in a row, it's pretty much the same episode. It's like a time loop. You know, it's kind of funny. It's just like in Rollgak and Ultasai, the Lucky Star game also is a time loop as like the main thing about it. But anyway, um, so yeah, I had this idea that because there's like this Endless Eight and people talk about the Endless Eight, like wouldn't it be like some real good like YouTube, challenge video type thing if I were to watch every episode of that anime as if it was the Endless Eight, as in like watch every episode 8 times in a row, including the Endless eight episodes, right? So like they'd be like the Endless 64, and I think I actually could have done it. If I had just committed to just watching the episodes 8 times, it would have been really hard and really like annoying, but I think I could have done it. But I had, again, that obsession that like I can't move on until I've mastered something. And so what I did is that I would try to spread out like learning this was my idea of being reasonable was like for those 8 episodes, I would for every viewing of these like episodes where I'd watch it 8 times, I would try to learn like 1/8. I was actually a more complicated system than that, but I tried to learn all the words that I didn't know across the different viewings, right? So I kind of spread them out like, okay, this time I'm going to learn all the new words I don't know that appear in the first 5 minutes, and then in the 5 to 10 minute mark, and then 15 to 20 minute mark, and so on. Stuff like that. And that was me thinking I was going to be reasonable, and I was going to have some days where I would just do some of my viewings, I'm going to watch the episode 2 more times, but since I've already learned all the words, or if I added all the words to Anki, that's like a rest day where I just have to watch it. Again, completely crazy, as if like taking a break of adding cards to Anki for like 2 days is going to make a difference when you're adding like 50 cards every day, or sometimes even more. I ended up getting like to episode 9 of the show, and it has like 2 seasons, so it's like 28 episodes. So only barely got like through like a third of it, the challenge, and then I just completely fell apart, and it was disastrous. I remember the night I kind of gave up. I was like staying up till like 3 a.m. trying to like do the Anki reviews, and then I was like, oh, I still have to watch the episode, and it was a disaster, and I just gave up. But yeah, so and then I guess my most recent attempt to try to grind Japanese knowledge was that in the summer, it was actually this past summer in 2025, I spent about 2 3 it was like actually most of the summer. I tried to grind out learning how to write kanji. Why that of all things? I don't know. I just got randomly inspired to learn how to write all the kanji. And I thought I was being reasonable this time by being like, I'm going to only learn 10 new kanji every single day. I'm only going to learn how to write 10 more kanji every single day. And I think I got up to like 800, 900 kanji. But then the same thing, I got super overwhelmed with the reviews. Reviewing how to write kanji took longer because, recalling a word takes less time than like you have to actually write out the kanji to make sure that you wrote it correctly and all that. And it was just a really boring thing. I did. It was so boring. I got completely burnt out. So yeah, I mean, like I always took this crazy, like, I don't know why I never thought to take a less extreme approach, but it was always like, I had to really go hard. Otherwise, I wasn't going to learn Japanese fast enough. It would take me like a decade plus to learn. And, I mean, hey, right, I spent 7 years now and not as far as I'd like to be. So, maybe I should have just taken it slower the whole time. But, oh well. But that takes me to the next thing I wanted to talk about. And I was like, man, I'm going on for a long time. But, we'll just, this is just a fun little me talking video. So that's what it is. So the next thing I wanted to talk about, right, is going from that is that I realized I needed to have a paradigm shift, right? Obviously. I needed to have a different system for tracking my progress than how many Anki cards I have. Like I had to break the idea that like my progress is equal to having this many Anki cards, because that's the you know because that means that I have to have that many Anki cards, and I have to make them, and I have to review them and stuff. And it also, I needed to just get rid of this idea in my head that I needed Anki to remember words just like at all. Like Anki is not necessary to remember words. Anki is used to help you remember words that are tricky or that you don't see often enough naturally. It's not just like the way you learn every single word. Right? I need to train my brain to the idea that like I can learn words without having to use Anki, because I actually, part of what really made me dig my heels in this is that I would often like not really remember words unless I learned them in Anki. And I think it's because my brain was really trained to not really pay as much attention to words unless it was in the context of Anki, which is really weird. But yeah, like it was a bad idea. I needed to like get rid of that idea in my head. Another thing is that I was still using very primitive tooling for learning Japanese. Like I really didn't like to use like any sort of special tools for anything other than Anki, really. No browser extensions, no Anki add-ons even, really. So I needed to find some way to reduce friction, to like really just make it easy for me to immerse and not waste so much time on like other things other than like the actual content. So that actually led me to, and this is not a sponsorship, guys. Although if you want to sponsor me, Migaku, you can. I did end up buying Migaku in summer of 2025. They had like a deal on their lifetime subscription, and back then, and it's pretty expensive to buy Migaku like for a lifetime. It's like $500 or something. It's crazy. But they had a deal to like buy it for like $200, which is still a lot. But I was like, I just need to try something, and I just felt like Migaku was good. I remember watching Yoga's videos and his association with Matt versus Japan and all that. I remember that whole story. Japanese learners will know the Migaku refold Matt versus Japan MIA drama, but so I always thought that Migaku seemed like it was a good tool that Yoga knew what he was doing. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But but why I got Migaku was that I knew that Migaku had a way to track progress. I know many tools do, but it has like a way to track what words you know and which words you don't know, right? And it does it without having to have cards. You don't have to have cards in their like system to consider like a word to be known. And it's really easy to use the tool. Like the tool is very convenient, especially with sites like YouTube or whatever, to watch videos or watch things like that. It's just a very refined set of tools. It's pretty good. So it's very easy to use, reduce lots of friction. But the problem is that I tried to use Migaku, but my master everything before moving on attitude was still there. It was still super strong. And so I tried to use Migaku, but what would happen is that I'd still just be like, oh, I gotta like learn all the words that I don't know. And I felt really hesitant about adding words or saying that I knew words if I didn't have a card for it yet. And so I tried playing around with it, but it just never really stuck. And so it actually wasn't until a few months ago that the paradigm shift, I think it was in September, that the paradigm shift really hit me. And it came from watching a language YouTuber called Evil Dia. So Evil Dia, he's like an Esperanto and Chinese speaker. And he's a pretty good language YouTuber. I definitely recommend him if you like language YouTube content, like language learning YouTube content and stuff like that. It's pretty good, pretty funny guy. Um, and he did these series. He's still doing them. He's doing a series of vlogs about using Dreaming Spanish. So Dreaming Spanish is like a comprehensible input channel or like website where you just watch like comprehensible input Spanish content and learn Spanish purely from watching the videos. Like you don't learn grammar or learn anything. He's been doing videos to kind of test the theory of like the automatic language growth method, which basically is the idea that like just from comprehensible input content alone, like you can learn a language to a high level of ability. And it might even, like they even argue it's like the best way to learn it. And so he's been doing a series of videos where he watches Dreaming Spanish, and nothing else, or not nothing else, but like only does content like viewing, only watches content, doesn't study the language in any way, doesn't try to speak the language until like watching like for like 1,000 hours of content. And it's been very interesting. The idea of doing something similar felt very freeing. And it was just like, man, like he's like actually doing pretty well in terms of comprehension in Spanish, despite the fact that like he's literally just watching videos. And that really was like a huge like, oh my gosh, like maybe I actually can learn words without having to I can learn words without having to deliberately study them. So that was one huge thing. I got really like interested in the idea of doing something similar myself. Because he was just picking up stuff just from watching. But I knew that like something he talks about a lot too in his videos about this topic is that he does strongly seem, he's very much on the opinion of if you were to augment this, you were to do something beyond just ALG, like you were to just study in addition to using Dreaming Spanish type stuff, that you would be way beyond what you're, like he would see way faster progress than he is currently. And so, I was thinking like similarly, it's like, yeah, like for someone at my level, I could adapt this and probably make some really great progress. In fact, he even says exactly this kind of thing. Like, it's kind of funny. He would talk about like, there's some people that like do Dreaming Spanish and they've learned Spanish for tons of years. And they report that they're like, oh, Dreaming Spanish, like I'm learning Spanish super fast now. It's amazing. It's perfect. And then, he's like, no, it's because you're finally getting input, right? You're finally like just learning to watch content and like not getting caught up in study. And, he was talking about that as like, this is me. This is me with Japanese. Like I'm exactly that person. I'm like way too caught up in like trying to deliberately like learn words explicitly and not enough just like taking in stuff. Another thing was that I was watching just randomly a interview. I forget which one, but it was an interview with Matt versus Japan, where he was talking about the fact that there were, similar to Dreaming Spanish, that there were comprehensible input channels specifically for Japanese. And I was like, whoa, like what? Maybe I should check them out just to see what they're like, because I was, trying to see if I could do something similar. And I had always known about the concept of comprehensible input. But the issue that I had always had is, and why I guess I always disregarded it, was because in my mind, I had always thought back to the Stephen Krashen video. And Stephen Krashen's the guy who he's like the linguist that popularized the idea of comprehensible input, where this is always the difficult part. Like, how much do I explain about what these things are? But, he would show the videos of, Stephen Krashen would have these videos where he'd like teach German by like drawing picture and being like, these are the ears. There are two ears. These are the eyes. He has two eyes. There is water coming out of the eyes. It means that he is sad. He is crying. These are tears. Like, it's like, to me, that was what comprehensible input always was. It was just like this like super stupid basic stuff that oh man, this is like not interesting to me at all. I had this really strong idea that like, okay, there's like the super basic like comprehensible input like of that nature is for like super beginners, right? And there doesn't really exist a middle ground between that and native content. Like there's just those two extremes. I don't know why I thought that, but that's just what I thought. But you know, seeing Evil Dia talk about his experience, combined with Matt versus Japan talking about a specific channel, and I checked it out, and I was like, oh wow, there's actually a lot of topics of varying difficulty levels. You know, and Evil Dia talked about the same thing, but for German Spanish, like there's different difficulties of stuff, and you know, there's various content creators that maybe make content that is made with the fact that learners of the language are watching, right? But they don't necessarily like speak like textbook, like they just talk simpler, right? They just are mindful to not use complicated words. And so, yeah, that was like really inspired me. um, and so I decided to come up with a plan for learning Japanese in this new way. So here's the basics of the plan, right? I was basically going to copy Evil Dia. I would do 50-hour intervals. I'd make, you know, the idea was I'd do 50-hour, I'd break it down into 50-hour intervals, with each interval having a certain focus and certain goals associated with it. You know, and by the 50 hours, I'm talking about like, if it's video content, like I'm actually watching 50 hours worth of video. Like I don't spend 50 hours watching video, as in like I'm not counting, you know, if I rewind a bunch or if I look something up, like that doesn't count. Like it has to actually be like the total of all the videos runtime has to be 50 hours long. And then for each 50-hour interval, I would watch different genres of content. I'd focus on different skills as well. That's the idea. So maybe 50 hours of reading or 50 hours of listening with subtitles or 50 hours of listening without subtitles. Different genres, like maybe I'm playing a video game or reading a visual novel, watching anime, reading a manga, reading a light novel, different things like that. So that's the idea. I'm not going to include translation in that because, again, I'm trying to get away from the idea of like, you know, translation is, I think I'm too ingrained in the idea of translating is about the finished product rather than about learning. And my mind's just kind of in a completely different mindset when I do translation. It's like when you do translation, you're focused really hard on how to express the idea in English more so than what are they actually saying. Like that, the part where you're actually just trying to understand what they're saying is like a very small part of the process, and then like a lot of the process is about thinking of a good way to express that in English. And again, my brain is kind of very geared towards the idea in translation of like, okay, if there's words I don't know, I look it up and I immediately just goes in one ear out the other as far as the Japanese part. And I just grab like the English meaning. I just grab like the meaning of it and just like work with that. So it's really not super great for learning new words. So I'm not going to ever include translation as part of this new effort. Although I still will do translation, but like it's not part of this. But yeah, so that leads to the first 50 hours. What is the first 50 hours that I'm going to do, or that I did? The first 50 hours, the goal was to focus on comprehensible input content, and I would be using Migaku's. Like Migaku has like recommended playlists on YouTube for comprehensible input, for like beginners up to like intermediate. And I was just gonna start with the beginner videos and just go however long. You know, just go however long, however advanced to a level I reach in that 50-hour period. I was just going to watch from the beginning. And I had these goals in mind. The goals were to de-rust, right? Again, I'm not used to watching stuff in Japanese a ton. Like, I do watch stuff every now and then, but like, you know, de-rust, kind of gather up, you know, where I'm at. Next thing, again, is get into the habit of immersing on a regular basis, because, again, I wouldn't really do that. Third thing is that I would use Migaku for vocab tracking. It's also was an opportunity to populate like Migaku's database of words that I do know with like all the words that I know like the back of my hand, right? And this is necessary because Migaku tries to like recommend words to learn and content to watch based on how comprehensible it is. So I needed to have it like filled out. I would need to fill out like it with all the words that I knew. So that way I can better assess like when it comes to native content that I watch going forward. Like I can assess pretty well like whether it's comprehensible for me or not if I have like a database filled out. So is that, and then the other thing, lastly, most importantly probably, is get used to actively trying to learn words without Anki. Because again, like I said it a ton of times already. But that was, yeah, I get this idea that I can't learn words without Anki. And so this started actually in November 15th. And it was actually just today, as of recording it, December 30th, that I just reached 50 hours. So then how did it go? How did it go? Well, I ended up realizing that 50 hours is actually a lot more content than I realized. Looking back on it, I'm really actually pretty surprised at just how much content I had to watch to get to 50 hours. Like, man, it was a ton. What kind of stuff did I end up watching, right? Again, it was from those playlists. There's two main kinds of content that I ended up watching. The first is obviously comprehensible input content, like the very standard kind of like drawing on the whiteboard, making various gestures kind of stuff. The second kind was vlogs or like podcast style videos where they just talk about a topic for however long, or they do vlogs where they like travel and like show off a location, or maybe you use it as like a way to go like, here's what it's like to check in at a hotel, or here's what it's like to order from a restaurant, or here's what it's like to go to a bar and stuff like that. So it's mostly those two kinds of things. But within that, actually, I was really pleasantly surprised with the variety of topics that they covered. It was actually a lot more engaging than I suspected. I thought I was going to be like bored to tears, and some videos did do that, but it wasn't nearly as much as I thought. There was a lot of really great content about different like cultural topics, just about people just expressing certain feelings that was kind of like surprising. I was like, oh wow, I can watch videos that person is talking about like their language learning experience in Japanese, as in like in Japanese they're speaking about their language learning experience with regard to like English, for example, or just their life goals in general. It was really nice. But yeah, I ended up learning a lot of different topics. There was actually a lot of things I learned, and which was really surprising because again, I thought like, man, this is gonna just be like, even if it's like not super basic stuff, it's gonna be just like I'm just reviewing stuff I already know, like for the millionth time. And again, through the absolute beginner stuff, that is kind of what happened. But it actually ended up being like some of the best content for my skill level, because what would end up happening is that I would understand everything because I knew like the core language. I would understand basically everything that they're saying except for domain specific words that were related to the topic they were talking about. So if they were talking about like special things that Japanese people do on New Year's, I mean, obviously I already knew some of that stuff, but like I would know everything they were talking about except like, okay, there's this thing that we do and it's called this. And it's like, okay, like I knew everything except for like that one thing they're talking about. And when they'd explain what it is, I could understand their explanation of what it was fully. And so it was like, man, I can learn. Like it's basically felt like I was watching like educational content that's just like in my own language, where it's like, okay, the things that you don't know are just the things that they're literally trying to teach you in the video. And because of that, there's a lot of words that I was able to learn about like day-to-day life topics or cultural Japanese culture stuff that I was able to learn without just organically without having to use Anki, right? And so it like really set me up for this idea of like, no, you don't need to use Anki to learn this stuff, right? there's another way. Like there's stuff you can pick up just by watching the videos. Um, so yeah, like in total, I ended up watching 307 different videos. They were nearly all of them were from the Migaku playlist. I did end up occasionally like watching a video that was not in part of that, but it was so few that it's not really worth talking about. But I'm going to talk about some of the channels that came up and what I thought about them. So the main content was this channel called Comprehensible Japanese. It seems to kind of be like the forefront of like channels that are specifically about making comprehensible input content in Japanese. It very explicitly follows like Stephen Krashen's idea of what a comprehensible input is, with like the whiteboards and drawing and making gestures. And it was kind of funny because like the lady that does comprehensible Japanese, like runs the channel and does most of the videos. She would like to do the 6-7 hands. Like whenever she would go soritomo or like kurabete, like either or comparison type stuff, she would just constantly do the 6-7 hands to like convey it. And it was always like, oh my gosh, I was like, my rotted brain thought it was the most hilarious thing ever. But yeah, she would use a lot of gestures and draw a lot of pictures, which was pretty good. And yeah, this like made up the main content of what those playlists had. Everything else was like they would just try to break up the comprehensible Japanese videos with these other channels, which, to be honest, is kind of like a little weird. It's like, maybe there should have been more variety, but I don't know. It's probably just because there's comprehensible Japanese is just really good in this department. But there was another channel. It started showing up at like the 7-hour mark, called Chie Japanese. So this is like an older lady who was also a contributor to Comprehensible Japanese, but she has her own channel. And they're like kind of targeted probably more to like absolute beginner, at least the ones that I had to watch. And to be honest, they kind of were the hardest ones to get through because they were so like basic, right? But there were intermediate videos that kind of came from her later, which were a lot better because they weren't so like stupid easy. But yeah, again, like probably were made for absolute beginners. And she also really followed like the CIA comprehensible input idea. Did a lot of drawings and pointing at things and stuff. The next channel that came up at like 9.5-hour mark was Daily Japanese with Naoko, which is like a podcast and vlog style channel. She had a really great personality. It was really fun to watch her like talk about different things. Was probably one of my favorite creators of the ones that I watched. And it was kind of interesting because like it wasn't comprehensible input so much in the sense of like the pointing at things, but it was just more that she just talked freely, but just used simpler vocabulary when speaking and like talked about stuff that's like the topics she's picking are obviously like learner made with the idea that she's teaching Japanese in mind, right? So like she's talking about Japanese culture topics and things like that. But yeah, it didn't really feel like she was actually holding back what she wanted to say. Like it wasn't like, oh, I can't say that because they won't understand. It was just more like she spoke with mindfulness that like she has to use easier words, right? It wasn't dumbed down. It was just like simple, right? Which was really nice and feels really good to watch videos like that because you feel like you're watching kind of like authentic videos, without having to be as good at Japanese. So it's pretty cool. And then like at the 29-hour mark, they like this. Once you reach 29 hours, it was like I got out of what they considered to be like the just starting playlist. They have a playlist called Just Starting, and then they have a playlist called like Late Beginner that comes after it. And they started it off with a channel called Nihongo Learning, right? So just Japanese language learning. And it was actually kind of interesting because it was like this is supposed to be the next level, but it was actually kind of a regression from Naoko in terms of difficulty. His channel was like very simple, comprehensible input content is like, I'm going to run around in a field and like tell you all about the different basic emotions in Japanese. Like this is happy, like, and then he's like smiling and stuff. And then, this is sad. And then he's like sad, right? So it's like really simple. But it was pretty entertaining, and up until this point, like almost everything that I had been watching was just by like women. So like having like a guy like be the guy who runs the channel was kind of at least sort of interesting, like some nice variety, I guess. But yeah, his content was really simple, but it does seem like he later on has like more intermediate videos in the later on in the playlist. So looking forward to that whenever I eventually should I ever eventually watch those videos. Um, yeah, and then like at the 32 and a half mile mark, there was a channel called Akane Teki Nihongo Kyoshitsu. So like Akane's Japanese classroom. It's also like a vlog and podcast style channel. It's kind of like a more advanced version of Daily Japanese with Naoko, in that like she spoke like faster than her, and she also spoke like more freely. It was clear that she wasn't holding back, or she wasn't like trying to use simple language as much. Though she still did, but like it felt like she was like restricting herself less. Um, she's probably like between her and Naoko was like those two were like really competing for my being my favorite channel that I watched. Um, though with Akane's videos, there was a bit of like repetitiveness, a little bit, in that she like would often go like a lot of the maybe this is just the videos they put in the playlist, right? And it's not the videos that she does. Like it's not the issue. It's just they put them all in the same playlist. All this like similar videos, but a lot of her videos were about going to restaurants and ordering food over and over again. But I didn't really mind it, right? Like it was just kind of like a thing, right? Because she was saying the same stuff over and over again. So it's like maybe it's a good thing, right? Maybe you can pick up on learn some new stuff by hearing her say the same thing over and over again. Like you can get good repetition out of that. And then the last channel that like started coming in at 47-hour mark. So the last 3 hours of content was just this channel. It was a channel called Hikaru. And it was actually, in some senses, it was a good channel to cap it off with, because it's actually not a channel made for learners. It's just like normal Japanese content. But one of the things that maybe like made it not so great, you could say with either or, right, was that because it was native Japanese content, like up until this point, I've been holding up like really well at following along with like all the videos, and I'm like understanding like almost everything in all of these videos, and I'm like learning lots of new words. This is where things started to kind of break down, because like Hikaru like speaks really really fast in his videos. Or he doesn't speak that fast, but like compared to the other videos, he was speaking really fast. And his videos are really hectic and have like lots of people talking over each other and speaking with a lot of slang. And the videos are in Kansai accents. Up until now, it's been in Tokyo accent, which it being a Kansai accent isn't really that big of a deal, because I'm pretty familiar with it from translation, because I would translate characters that speak in Kansai accent and stuff, but it's like a little extra level of difficulty, I guess, because I can't like internalize Kansai accent as well. Not really a ton, but like it's like maybe a little factor there. But yeah, overall the videos were pretty good. His videos were pretty good, especially since they was like just normal content. He was doing a lot of gambling. It was kind of funny. Like he did trading. The videos in the playlist are him like, you know, doing trading card unboxings, like gotcha, doing gotcha rolls, lotteries, and so on, collecting. He's like total like RG Rogue and Alta Say Pro Tag, where like he like loves to gamble and he loves trading cards. And it was actually really funny because like this guy's, like he a lot of his videos seem to be involve him like going to like a certain trading card shop, and like he has like a good relationship with like the store manager and stuff. It's a lot of fun. Um, and another good thing is that because the videos were kind of targeted towards natives, and also because they're using like otaku type words, because it's talking about like trading cards and stuff. There was a lot of words that I was able to still add, even if my comprehension was a lot lower on these videos. Um, I still was able to pick up a lot of new terminology relating to the trading cards, like like different rarities, although I kind of already knew a lot of that, but maybe like, words for like unboxing or like unsealing, or words for, different qualities of trading cards, like talking about like the border, whether it has like a foil border or it has like a, shining, or it has like relief on it, like has like texture to the, and all sorts of stuff like that. So it's pretty good. And so that kind of leaves us like with the end, right? Like what were the results, right? Again, watching all 50 hours of video content took a lot longer than I thought. It's called a lot of content there. 50 hours is a lot. I probably know, because that's how long my Rollback and Ultimate video translation is. When I translate the whole game, it was like 50 hours long, but I didn't really ever realize, like, man, 50 hours is a lot. It's not short. In total, I ended up adding 6,223 words. I marked 6,223 words as known in Migaku. It's probably a pretty bloated number, to be honest, because in Migaku, like, different ways to write the same word get counted as different words, and I would count them as different words. And a lot of the things I added were katakana loan words or proper nouns. But nonetheless, it still was a lot of words that I didn't know. And of course, there's also a lot of words that I did know already. So, like, don't take 6,223 as like, man, you can learn 6,223 words in just 50 hours. It's like, no. Probably the vast majority of those were still words that I knew already in some fashion. But, there were some words I didn't know, like suizokon, meaning like aquarium. And surprisingly, I didn't know the word for puddle, mizutamari. And it's just very worse. There's like probably like a few hundred words that I did actually learn. But yeah. Another thing was that I was pretty lax in how I decided what words I became considered known. I did try using, there's like a feature in Migaku called tracking a word, where you basically just mark a word as like, it'll mark it as like, oh, this is a word that you've chosen to track, right? And sometimes I'd like mark a word that like I kind of felt like I was learning as tracking, and then I would wait a few times to see it over and over again, and it's like, oh, if I still kind of like every time I see it, I can like go like, oh yeah, it means that, and I was correct. I would then say like, okay, I can consider that as a word that I've learned. So I do that sometimes, but other times I just kind of went off of vibes of like, if I see the word and I can tell what it means without looking it up, and I feel like I'll be able to do so in the future. Like anytime I see this word, I'll just understand what it means, because I can infer like what it means from like seeing the way that it's written or the context. Like it makes it clear what it is, or I'll just remember it because I remember the context in which it showed up. I would just count it, right? There's a lot of times I just did that. So we'll end up seeing what the long-term effects of that are, especially maybe when I do phases where I'm spending time reading or doing listening without subtitles. I'm gonna have to relearn those words. I'll have to move them out of like known, because it's like, yeah, like I can't read that word when it shows up, even though I said that I learned it earlier. Another thing is that, that 6,223 words is how many I added, but I probably still, like, I feel like before I even started, my vocabulary size was probably like 8,000-ish words. So there's probably like 1 to 2,000 more words that aren't represented that I do know, but are not like considered to be known in Migaku yet. But 6,000 is still nothing to sneeze at. I definitely think it's a lot more useful and much more representative of like where I stand. Even if there's still going to be some words I have to add. I do think that the words that I did know, I did learn. I don't know them probably as well as if I had made Anki cards, right? Because I'm not like hardcore grinding them into my head. I guess it depends though. Like it's kind of sometimes it would be like that, sometimes it wouldn't be. Maybe some words I learned better than I would have with Anki cards, but there's probably words I didn't learn as well. Especially those ones I kind of went off of vibes. Like I could imagine, like if I saw that word in a different context, like a few months later, like I might not know what it means anymore. But I think it's a good trade-off, to not know some words as well as I'd like. um, it, and not have to spend tons of time and stress out about Anki all the time, and not immerse as much. Like I think that's a huge, yeah, I totally take that over have I totally take the free time and the less stress over maybe knowing some words slightly better, right? You know, and again, some words I probably know better than I would if I did make Anki cards for them. I do also think that my relationship in general with words that I don't know is a lot better, right? Again, I really now feel like I don't have to know everything. There's also much more this idea of like, oh, I should just learn stuff that'll help me. Like, I should learn words based off of what will help me like better understand things in the future. Like, what words bring value to me like in the near future, rather than like focusing on like words that are not likely to show up ever again, right? Like, or it's very rare word. Like, my brain is like, oh, that doesn't matter. I'm probably never gonna see that word again, or I'm not gonna see it like for so long. That it's better that I focus on these other words, right? That sort of paradigm shift has happened, and it's been really great. Another thing is that I become a lot more okay with the idea of like, as long as I know vaguely like what a word is, I don't necessarily always have to know exactly what the word means. Sometimes it's okay to like know that something is just like a type of food. Like when you hear this word, you just know it's a food. You don't know like exactly how that food is prepared or like what ingredients are in that food, but like you just need to know that it's a food. Like when they say it, like, oh, that's a food. That's the name of a food, or this is the name of a place, right? And you don't need to know exactly like what that place is, where it's exactly located in Japan, right? Not any of that, right? It's just like, this is a location. This is somebody's name, right? This is food, right? I don't need to worry about knowing exactly what it is. Another thing again is that with Migaku, I never really had the convenience of doing instant lookups, right? I never did anything like that before. I always just like copy pasted the word into and then went to G-Show and then looked at it, and so having like an instant lookup tool like helped a ton and reduced the friction to like, you know, and sort of the breaking the pace. Like my pace wasn't being broken up as much because I could just like very quickly just look at a word and go like, oh, okay, it means that, and then take like 2 seconds, and then I'd be right back to watching the video instead of like taking like 15 to 20 seconds or maybe even longer if I was doing G-Show. Overall, I think I really achieved what I set out to do. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to what comes next. So that brings us to what does come next. So the next 50 hours is going to be, I've decided it's going to be basic slice of life anime. I'm still going to keep Japanese subtitles up. I'm still going to use Migaku, but it's going to be watching basic slice of life anime. And it's going to probably take about 10 seasons worth of anime to reach that next 50-hour mark, to reach the 100-hour mark. So yeah, I'm going to be watching a lot of anime, which I haven't done in a long time, really. I mean, like I've studied, and like done research for like my translation, but I've never really just stood down to just watch anime for the sake of watching anime, and like it kind of feels bad. It's been a really long time since I've done that, and I'm looking forward to it. The anime that I'm going to start with is Karakai Jozu no Takagi-san, because if you look up on JPDB, which is like a website that like can like, you can use it for like studying flashcards and stuff, but like one of the things I like to see it use it for is to just see like how hard do they consider certain things to be, and it considers Karakai Jozu no Takagi-san to be like the easiest anime. Like if you rate it by easy difficulty, like easiest to hardest, like it puts that anime at the top. And I've taken a look at like the subtitles, and I've taken a look at what Migaku thinks like my comprehension of it is, and it's already rating it as like 80% on the first episode of that anime. So I'm feeling pretty good that I can actually probably watch like slice of life anime and just watch it, which is weird to me because it's like I feel like I probably could have done that for a long time, but I just never really gave myself the chance. And so I'm really looking forward to just being able to see if I can just watch it anime casually and just relatively understand it. Another anime that I'm probably gonna watch probably as part of the next 50 hours is Haganai. Right, that's an anime that I've watched before, obviously, but it has a similar comprehension score. It's like 80%, and that's an anime I really like, and I haven't watched it in many years, so I'm definitely looking forward to watching that again. But yeah, I gotta watch like maybe like 10 seasons of anime. So if you guys have any suggestions on anime that you think will be good for this phase, like let me know. I might watch it. Obviously they should be like simple anime, like it shouldn't be like super complicated anime or like and I kind of want to keep it slice of life stuff for now. But yeah, well, if you guys got anything, let me know. Just note that I'm not gonna watch Lucky Star again. I don't want to watch Lucky Star. Yeah. Don't really kind of too much Lucky Star. I already do a lot of Lucky Star stuff, so I don't want to watch the anime for that again. I'm also not gonna do Haruhi right now because I think it's a pretty difficult anime, at least compared to like other slice of life anime, to translate or to understand. So I'm gonna hold off on that. Although I might, with Haruhi, I might try my endless 8 every episode challenge again at some point. Obviously, I'd modify it, but like I am kind of leaving that on the table of like maybe that's a thing to do in the future, but that's gonna be not for a while. So another thing is that now that I've kind of got a lot of the low hanging fruit words in Migaku, if I want to continue to expand the vocabulary out, my vocabulary out, I'm probably going to, even though I've trained myself to not use Anki and to learn words without Anki, like in order to really get the most out of it, I'm probably going to need to start, for some words, using flashcards again. I'm going to try to use Migaku Memory, which is like Migaku's version of Anki, to make flashcards for words that I think are going to be useful, but it's going to be hard to learn those words just from like seeing the word in context. Like I need to probably deliberately study it a little bit. But I'm going to be really, really strict about it. Like placing like a hard limit of like, I was thinking 10, but maybe even be even lower than that. Like a 10 per day, like might even go lower than that, but and be really, really strict about what words I add. So that way I'm not adding like low value words, and I'm not adding words that like I can't reasonably, like I don't have enough context to really know what the word means. And, I can't make a good card out of it. Another thing is that I'm not sure if Migaku Memory does this, but I'm going to see if I can come up with some way to like retire cards after a certain point, because like, honestly, like having cards that like have like year-long intervals is like really ridiculous. Like you don't need to do that. Like if you have to like see the card like once a year in order to remember it, like, and that's the only way you could learn the card. The only way you can remember this word is by having like seeing it like once a year in Anki. It's like, is this really a word that you need to know? Like, like you never see this word ever outside of Anki. Like, probably don't need to know it. So I'm gonna probably try to see if I can like, once the cards reach a certain interval, I just stop studying them, unless I need to learn it again. But yeah, gonna be very, very cautious about how I introduce that, because I don't want to fall back to my old habits. So yeah, looking forward to how these next 50 hours are gonna go. I did not expect to talk for over an hour on this video. I'm not sure if I'm gonna trim it down before it gets released or not. But yeah, it was just wanted to get these thoughts out. So let me know what you think of this video. How I think future videos are gonna definitely be a lot shorter because I don't have to give all this background. I definitely like them to be more streamlined. But let me know if there's anything else that you'd like to see in these videos. Again, keep in mind these videos are trying to be like pretty relaxed and laid back and not high effort, because I'm just trying to do this in addition to the challenge, or in addition to what I'm doing. I don't want to like have this become like a bottleneck or become an issue where I don't want to keep going because I feel bad about making the video. Like I don't want the video to get in the way of finishing or continuing with what I'm doing. So, but yeah, the goal is to do 50 hours every month or so. We'll see how much I'm able to immerse. It could depend. Could be not as often, but that's the goal. So hopefully, maybe end of January there'll be another video talking about my experience watching slice of life anime. And yeah, thanks everybody who's watched all this way. Hopefully it was interesting. Hopefully it was entertaining. And see you next time.